Blessed day and welcome back. It is Wellness Wednesday, and this is the Martial Mystic 2026 calendar series. Hope you're doing well out there. I want to go back. We've been talking about roots. I want to go back to how this series started. So, last year, 2025, three words stuck with me as I finished off the year and what I wanted to have coming into this next year: unity, mental health, and dispute resolution systems. Those three key phrases are what sort of synthesized what I'm looking at, what I'm observing externally, internally, internally, and then how I am approaching my health and well-being. It's Wellness Wednesday. So what are we talking about today? We're continuing with the idea of roots, and today we're talking about the emotional roots from stagnation to bloom. Yesterday we talked about no roots, no bloom. And for martial arts, we talked about Tai Chi's connection to Mabu, which is the horse stance, and its connection to stance training and foundational work, practice, and discipline for martial arts. We didn't talk about the roots of the tree, but that's pretty self-explanatory. Um, Interestingly, we cannot necessarily see the roots of the tree. We only see the relative external part of the tree: trunk, branches, flowers, leaves. But how important are the roots? How important is root? And then the past couple of days, we looked at what is the root of all things. So, in Chinese thinking and philosophy, all of the things that we see in the world are called the 10,000 things, Taoist philosophy, but they have one original source, one place that everything came from, and then one place where everything returns. And we know that here in this physical realm, there's a life and a death cycle, right? We have a physical dimension to us and a non physical, immaterial dimension to us, could be called the soul or the spirit. And the Chinese said that we have a yin dimension and a yang dimension. The yang dimension you can see, and the yin dimension that you cannot see. And we know that we have an aspect to us that we cannot see, but we are deeply connected to and what we can feel. Um, and that pertains to our our thinking, our psychology, our emotion, our thoughts. And so we're going to explore today how thought and emotion is the roots of action, morality, and bloom. So, just to reiterate and give the imagery here, again, the 10,000 things can be distilled into heaven, man, and earth. Heaven, man, and earth have one source, which is Wu Ji. The Tai Chi symbol here is also important for the work that we do and for the work that we are interested in. Tai Chi is really important for the discipline, the vision, the day-to-day idea. Wu Ji is important because Wu Ji gives us that place of peace, ease, calm, resolution, and no mind. Monday we talked about the mind of no mind, thought of no thought, and breath of no breath. This concept where you do without doing, you are without being, and it's kind of like driving without driving. You know you can drive, but you don't necessarily have to focus on it or think about it after you get used to it. So this is the vision that we have for a lot of our health benefits, our mental health strategies, our physical health strategies, and our relational health strategies that we talk about in Thursday, Resolution Thursday. It's all connected for the sake of health, well-being, and contributing to peace on the planet. So why did the ancient scholars and monks talk about thoughts in their text, right? If we look at our February poetry, let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna have to pull it up here. But if we look at our February poetry and even our um, January poetry, we were looking at thoughts, or we were talking about thoughts. The poetry comes from thoughts, and from my teacher's book, where we are trying to understand the nature of thoughts. So in February's, do not be afraid of the initiation of the thought, but be afraid of the delayed perception. Be afraid of the delaying of its perception. And that's because thoughts are the roots of our actions. Um, from the Tao Te Ching, we get the morality of mind and morality of deed. If you can handle the morality of mind, then it's easier for the morality of deed to be uh, manifested without trying to be so conscious and firm or strong with it or trying to have to control it. If you have a morality and balanced mind, then most likely you'll have balanced actions, speech. And the monks knew this. They knew that they could make themselves sick with their thoughts or make them healthy with their thoughts. So this comes back to the idea of regulation. In Qigong, we always talk about regulation. In interpersonal neurobiology, um, integration and organization is what's talked about. What do we do? How do we make peace with our emotional mind? It's usually talked about as the horse mind. And what we want to do is cultivate, or it's usually talked about as the monkey mind. Usually, what we want to do is cultivate the monkey mind. And we want to walk forward, be balanced, and contribute to the world. In Qigong, we talk about the quality and the quantity of energy. And simply put, the quality of how you're experiencing the moment, the quality of how you're experiencing your body, your emotion, your mind, your psychology is has to do with a lot of the qigong, right? And your health, right? Because if you're not well, if you're not healthy, you're not going to feel well, right? So the aspect and the idea of improving your mind to improve your habits, to improve your health are all connected. And we're looking at the roots of it. Where does it all come from? And how do we um, address things? And how do we know what the right thing to do is for our health? And my teacher would always say, you're the only one that has the answer. There's no one else that knows you better than yourself. And at the same time, it's important to have that quality of looking and the skill of looking. Monday, we talked about mental health and the mental health assessments and how it's a series of interviews and observation by the doctor. So, what the question that I pose is, why can't we look at ourselves in a fair, balanced, equal way that we can learn and move forward? That's the concept of nature gong fu, the gong fu of internal vision. And so in spiritual circles, you see the images of the chakras as understanding that these energy centers are at the roots of our health and how we make choices, how we present ourselves, live live in the world, and and contribute to peace on the planet. So, for the sake of today and wellness, we're looking at the middle Dantian, which is more associated with the heart chakra. So, um, what does it look like to regulate the middle Dantian? What is the middle Dantian and uh, and the heart chakra? When you think about heart, or when we hear heart, we think about feelings, we think about love, we think about compassion and desire, possibly. There's always a yin and a yang aspect that we want to have. Remember, we want to have that lens, the yin yang lens, so that we can look at ourselves and look at the world. The better we can cultivate that yin yang lens, the better we can cultivate yin yang you. And this helps us get to that place of the horse mind, the wisdom mind, and that concept and the desire for self conquering, which is mitigated by, and well, actually, I should say facilitated by self restraint, self control. And this is what our practice is about. This is why we have a sort of like a ritual type nature to the lifestyle of conscious living, well being, health, meditation, contemplation. And this is where Tai Chi and Qigong also come in. Understanding that using today's vernacular, mental health is facilitated by the lower body regulation and the front and the aspect of bottom up approach. Understanding how important it is to regulate the body for well-being in our lives. And that really puts attention on the body itself. Once you start putting attention on the body itself, you start taking care of it, then you start to have an appreciation for it. So going back to the idea of chakras, energy centers, middle Dantian, we just looked at the image of the three grand powers, the three energy centers, heaven, man, and earth. And that is uh, symbolic of the macro nature of our own body. In that, the upper energy center is the represents heaven energy. The middle energy center represents humanity. The lower energy center represents earth. So interestingly, our heart center is connected to our aspect of humanity. And we can all think about situations where we've lost our sense of humanity and have to work to gain our sense of humanity. For me, as a martial artist, understanding self defense, life and death, self protection, we understand that we build ourselves to defend ourselves if someone were to lose the idea of our own humanity, right? That means that they would be attacking us in some way where we would have to fight for our survival, fight for our humanity. It has nothing to do with emotion. it's a reality of this realm. It's a reality of the earth realm where predation happens. In the wild, animals feed on one another. Supposedly, we're at the top of the food chain, right? It has nothing to do with emotion, but understanding that, yes, I can also be um, pre I can be a victim of predation. I also have to be careful how I don't contribute to predation and I don't become any sort of predator, especially as a martial artist, and being cultivating an aspect that can garner a sense of power and will, right? So again, the yin yang aspect to survival, humanity, power, will, heart consciousness. This is the nature of the middle Dantian because it mediates the lower energy base center and drive with our higher self. And being the peaceful, loving uh, selves that we desire to be in the world. So, this is why the contemplative practice is important because we have to sit with it all. And we have to sit with also the times, the if we're interested in repair, we talk about this in Resolution Thursday. If we're interested in reflection, repair, then we have to sit with our choices. We have to sit with our thoughts and we have to sit with our speech and our actions in a way that we keep humanity for ourselves, understanding that we're all learning in this earth realm. We have to sit with it all, sitting with that monkey to cultivate the horse mind, right? And understanding that, or becoming more acquainted with the inner side, the yin side is what we would say, and how that is the roots of our nature and our being. Right? Going back to the concept of spirituality and uh, living our divine nature. So understanding wellness too, we also have to look at the eight domains of wellness and see how the heart chakra, middle Dantian energy pertains to an aspect of wellness defined today by today's standards, because there's eight dimensions of wellness: physical, emotional, social, intellectual, spiritual, occupational, environmental, and financial, right? To get to a root of personal wellness in the emotional, social, and even spiritual domain, we have to take a look at this energy center, this middle Dantian, right? And because we all want to learn, grow, become better, live our most healthy selves. This is also connected to our highest selves, our highest self being our most loving and our most wisdom, right? And as we can see in the world, not a lot of people can do that. And we also have to maintain humanity for people that can't do that because we understand that it's difficult for us in our most challenging situations. It's hard not to be angry, frustrated, irritable, and overshoot the mark when when we need to request respect, request autonomy, request to be heard, request to be seen, request to be acknowledged. So those sort of things are at the roots of our heart centers. And sometimes they can be associated with needs that are not necessarily tangible, but needs that are intangible. The yin side of needs. We have the yang side of needs, like the post birth chi, what we eat, what we drink, our partnership, our companionship. And then we have our yin side of needs, those that can't really be seen. But we're the only one, we're the ones that can advocate the best for those. should we know how to advocate for those? So in Resolution Thursday tomorrow, perhaps we'll talk about advocating for the yin side of our needs, the yin side of our nature, or the yin side of our beings and the nature of ourselves, right? So if you learn Tai Chi, if you understand Tai Chi and you practice Tai Chi, you might understand the needle, picking up the needle from the sea bottom, right? This is a well-known posture in Tai Chi. Maybe I can pull it up. But the sea bottom, I should say, is associated with the um, abdominal region. And at the bottom is the pelvic floor. So the energy center, the lower energy center, is often described as the um, chi ocean, the ocean of chi. But if we understand the ocean, and we really don't, but at the deepest, darkest depths of the ocean, the deepest, darkest depths of the ocean, we have that which we have not explored yet. That which we have not explored yet. So, one of the things that I'm studying and looking at is the repression of the heart center energy, the repression of emotional energy. Where does that go? Right? So, for me in my martial arts studies, what I've realized and understood is martial arts stirs up energy, it stirs up um, thinking and past memory and thought. So, looking at the legs and the body and the torso, the legs, the legs, the pelvic floor and the sea bottom are right in the transition point of the torso and the legs. The transition areas are very important because those are doorways. And if we think about the legs as starting a fire, think about the legs starting a fire, right? That bubbles and boils water. You can think about the torso, the lower torso, as a bottle, your your water, and the the mud that has settled, or the silt that has settled at the bottom, that gets stirred up during activity. So interestingly, why do we process thoughts when we go for a walk? Does it have to do with the that fire of the legs that stirs up or boils the water of the energy ocean? And if there's anything that's repressed or not looked at, is it possible that it's repressed down in the deepest, darkest ocean depths that need processing? Because in order to have our highest self, in order to have our healthiest self, we have to have constant, smooth circulation. When emotion is stuck, or we stagnate emotion, then we work counter to health. We work counter to that circulation and that flow. Emotion gets stuck in the body. It's talked about as getting stuck in the law vessels, second, um, or they're not. I think they're secondary. I'm still researching, but they get stuck in those law vessels, and energy that gets stuck eventually manifests as um, illness symptoms, dis-ease symptoms, right? So, what is the nature of that uprising, right? What's the nature of that path from energy to thought to speech and to action? Because in Buddhism, we study skillful thought, skillful speech, skillful action, and skillful view so that we can have a clear perspective and a view of ourselves and the nature, going back to nature gong fu. Have to be able to sit with ourselves, our worst selves, and our best selves. Understanding we'll have good days and understanding we'll have bad days, right? So I'm just diving into the middle Dantian and the energy center within the aspects of mental health, unity consciousness, and dispute resolution systems, going back to where we were in 2025, and then this weekly series of mental health, Tai Chi Tuesday, Wellness Wednesday, Resolution Thursday, and Fearless Friday, right? So think as an emotion, maybe we'll talk about this on Friday. Where does fear come into play? And how do we know when root is, how do we know when fear is at the roots of our actions? Or how do we know when our fear, or when fear is at the roots of our speech? How do we know when fear is at the roots of our thinking? And how do we know we have the right view of fear when it arises? How do we know that we're not catastrophizing as well? These are things that we all struggle in this earthly body, in this earth school, in this earth realm, searching for our highest selves. So if you can't look at the roots, then how can you have a blessed bloom? How can you have your most beautiful bloom? How can you have your most efficient, optimal bloom? And this is important as we think about our seasonal health, winter, right? Being dormant energy, going down into the roots. And as we come into our spring, it's late February into March and April and spring, and how we choose to go through the year, because summer is when we're energy's at its peak. And that pathway of view, thinking, speech, and action is also manifested through the year and through the season. In the winter, the dormant seed; the spring, the young sprout; and summer at full bloom, right? So I want to thank you for checking this out today, the Martial Mystic series for 2026. And we'll be back tomorrow for Resolution Thursday: how to contribute to other people's blooms, how to see the beautiful bloom that people envision for themselves, and how do we co-create and vision for one another. So embrace the woo, and until next time, may your chi flow smoothly.